Hey guys, Cyphus here. So today's a double release. We are bringing back the casual shows you'll see in your feeds, and we're also doing a quick one-on-one with Eosin Dota. Eosin Dota was a former pro player. You guys might know him from some of Purge's videos and streams. Streamed himself at twitch.tv/EosinTrash. That's EOSIN. You can always follow him on Twitter as well, Eosin Dota. Former KDL Champion, as we talk about a little bit. And he's injecting a new amateur Dota 2 tournament into the scene. He's working with Lyrical Dota and several other fine folks to try to bring some more amateur tournament action to the Dota 2 scene. And he told us a little bit about that when he stopped by for this interview a couple of weeks ago. So, without further ado, here's the show. You are listening to a DotP one-on-one. Pyrian Flax, welcome to the show, sir.
Hello.
That is Casey Atchison. Welcome to the show, Casey.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome, Sunsfan.
Hello, friends. It's been a long time.
Mott, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me once again. Very excited to be here.
Austin, Capitalist Walsh. Welcome to the show, Cap.
Thank you very much, man. It's good to be back.
Special guest, Sir Action Slacks. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Hey everybody, welcome to another DotP one-on-one. As usual, I'm Cyphus, and today I am sitting here with Stephen Chang, that you might know him better as Eosin Dota. Eosin, you've had a pretty crazy background with what you're in the you're KDL Champion, right? I've heard that before.
Hey, thanks for having me. I get called that every now and then, but I don't know. At this point, it feels like sometimes it doesn't feel so serious whenever people say that.
Yeah. I've heard that it is a little memey to do that. I was told that I have to at least make one reference to the fact that you are the KDL champion. And I guess maybe that'll kind of open up to my first question. Your kind of initial foray into the Dota 2 pro scene was in the Korean scene. Why were you guys focused on Korea at that time? Like, what was the reasoning behind that? What were you kind of hoping to do there, and what do you think the scene as it stands now?
Originally, I actually had my hand in professional Dota much before that actually happened. But the original reason why we did go over it was like a very simple one. Blitz went over there. You know, he had a team that he was going to compete with. He makes his way over there. It doesn't go, well at all. The team just doesn't qualify, and then they end up disbanding, and he finds himself completely lost over there. And he's like really struggling to figure out what he's actually going to be doing there. And during that time, he talks to Purge, one of his good friends at the time, one of his best friends up until now, I'd like to imagine. And they come to this conclusion where they're just like, if this team couldn't do it, why don't we just make a new one? And that was where the idea was born, and that's where I got brought into the picture, because at the time I was spending a lot of time with them in real life, and they asked me if I wanted to play.
That's cool. So how I feel like the Korean scene, I guess I don't know how to put this nicely, but it seems like it's kind of lackluster. Even still, as far as Dota 2 is concerned, why do you think that is? And do you think that the Korean Dota 2 scene will ever kind of come online?
It's still lackluster because there's quite a few reasons to it. This is a question that we've always asked some of the Koreans over there about why they thought this was the case. Apparently, a lot of it just has to do with the current state, like the popularity of the game, as well as the style of the game. What they always tell me is that a lot of the Korean population, they just like to play games that feel very colorful and very cutesy, for a lack of better words. That's like exactly how they worded it to me. And Dota is very far from that. And, what the opposite of it, League of Legends, which is why... And they're very, they really stick onto things. If it's not trending, no one really latches onto it. And that's why Dota just isn't really picking up over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess and that makes sense, and especially with League, I guess I hadn't really thought about maybe the stranglehold that League could have over a region, and given kind of the contrast that you bring up there with Dota. Does it kind of make, I mean, having spent some time, being involved in the Korean scene, does it kind of make you sad that it hasn't taken off yet, or do you feel like you've just kind of left that behind you and you don't really care as much?
I'm definitely sad that it didn't really pick off. That it didn't really pick up, but at the same time, I can't really complain because it brought us a great team, at least.
Yeah.
We all know how well the MVP team ended up going on, and then they made one team that was fairly successful, and now all of them, they achieved their goals as to they kind of marked their place in Dota, and now all of them are considered tier 1 players. And I think that alone is, I'm not going to say that was us who did that, but we definitely took part in that.
Yeah. So let's segue away from Dota for a second and get to know you. Where are you originally from?
I was born in California. Lived here for about 13 years, and then I moved to Asia to finish high school.
So, and why did you move to Asia? What was what brought that about?
It was simply, my parents, they were public school here is not very good. If you look at my track record, my public school for middle school was I had a GPA of something along the lines of 0.6 because I did not put in any effort into school, and yet I still managed to graduate because of the standardized testing that they had. So despite not ever showing up to class, I showed up to class, but I just went to sleep. And then, at the end of the year, they gave a standardized test, and I was like, oh, you got 90% on your test. How are you 0.6 GPA? Whatever, doesn't matter. We don't care. And then they, let you graduate. They let you move on to the next grade without being held back.
So they were. Was it mostly out of concern for your education that took them, out of the U.S.?
That's half of it. The other half is just they felt like it wasn't a very positive environment. It was it's kind of rude to say this about my hometown, I suppose, but it was very low class in terms of upbringing. I'd say on average people are below middle class, and because of that, there was some discussion with one of my relatives, my godfather to be exact. And he gave us an opportunity. He said, why don't we make him go to school in an international school? And that's where the idea to take us and us being my brother and I over to Hong Kong, where we ended up going to a private school, which is very expensive. Looking back, it was ridiculously expensive, but also a decision that I really appreciate. It really made me who I am today.
So, overall, that was you definitely felt like that was a positive experience going and having that international education brought about in your life.
Oh yeah, definitely. Couple of things that are really important to bring up about this drastic change is that private education is extremely difficult. It's not just because you put in money, you're going to get positive result out of it. It's incredibly competitive. The things that you end up going through in terms of education are, I'm not even exaggerating, probably 5 years ahead of the American public schooling, simply because of how they train you out of high school. They want you to be able to get into university right as you get out of high school, whereas the American system, once you graduate high school, they expect you to, take some time, go explore a little bit before transferring into university. But over there, they just want you to be the best in your field of interest.
Yeah, that sounds encouraging. It sounds maybe harder, but maybe worth that extra effort overall.
Oh yeah, it's So here's the thing about me. Despite going to a private school, once again, did the exact same thing. Put no effort into it. I did pass, but there was a very, very large curve to how I proceeded through high school. So I started in 8th grade, and without studying, I was able to manage like a 3.0, for example. And as I continued my way towards 12th grade, as everything became more and more difficult and your classes become more and more refined because you end up dropping classes to focus on what your interests are, my grades just like plummeted. It was like a mountain that goes straight down, and I just had no interest in. I realized that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and take a wild guess at what I ended up doing like most of the time in high school.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when did gaming just in general come into your life? Even before Dota 2, were there games that drew you into gaming during this time? Was that a part of maybe that lack of that lack of motivation to do schoolwork?
So I would say it definitely started before that. It was much earlier. I'd say I started when I was about in 3rd grade. That's when I got my hands on PlayStation, and it was also around the time when Final Fantasy VII came out. So it was the first title I ever played. Yes. And from then on, it was just I got so hooked, and I was like, this is a great game, and I need more of it. And from then on, I became hooked on RPGs. I played them consistently, like throughout the years. I went through the whole PlayStation phase with all the RPGs. I went through the PlayStation 2 phase with all the RPGs. But in between all of that, I also got hooked onto computer games because in middle school, that's around the time when Counter-Strike as well as Diablo 2 was popular in my school. And that's when I picked up computer gaming.
Did you get into Counter-Strike first as maybe one of your first competitive games?
I never played it competitively, but I always like to think of myself as like everyone played it. So you just wanted to be the best out of your peers in school. So that is as far as my competitive went. I didn't even know that people played it, tournament-wise. I didn't even know that professional gaming was a thing until I'd say like at the start of my high school. That's when I started seeing, people playing Warcraft 3 competitively, but until then I didn't even consider gaming to be, tournaments and whatnot competitive. That wasn't even the picture.
So when did Dota kind of come into your life? When was it Dota 1? Was it that initial Warcraft 3 mod? Like what was your first interaction with Dota?
My first interaction with Dota was in Warcraft 3. I played a lot of ladder in Warcraft 3 when I was in Asia, and I played with a lot of Singaporeans. And, they had their own community. I would always hang out there, and, I would just play ladder all the time. And all of a sudden, one day, my friends said, "Hey, have you heard of this game called Dota? You should play it." And I'm just like, okay, I might as well, right? So I try it out, and I'm like, this is actually pretty interesting. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just going to keep playing it because everyone else played it, for fun. So I just kind of juggle that between between Dota and playing ladder. And then the more I played Dota, the more I liked it. And then it just kind of like, spiraled from that point on.
And when did you? So, what kind of sparked your interest in maybe competing in Dota in a more serious capacity? When did that decision kind of come about for you?
So that's a pretty big leap forward. I started playing Dota when I was like 13, and it wasn't until I finished high school and I came back to America. And I'm just wondering to myself, what am I going to do with my life? So I was just sitting on my ass and going back to college to taking classes. And all of a sudden, TI1 shows up. And it's like $1 million first place. And I'm just like, my jaw dropped. I was like, I can't believe it. My time is finally here. I spent so much time playing Dota 1. I was competing in like small tournaments. which is another interesting story behind that. My first Dota 2 team was with Tides of Time, another player who recently played on FDL. His name is Franz, and AUI 2000. And we had another team member. Wow. His name was Raffle Factor. So this was my first Dota 2 team. So it's very interesting to see how time has progressed. And but yeah, once TI 1 came around, I was like, there's hope. I can give this a shot. Like I didn't think that that could have been me, but I thought to myself, I could try this out, maybe.
Yeah. So how did you kind of segue from participating in the more amateur stuff into obviously the more professional leagues, and how kind of, I guess, finding your way to Zephyr?
So the beginning of my journey is just, I was playing Dota with a bunch of friends, and we've been playing for quite some time, but we never really took competing into consideration. And all of a sudden, there's open tournaments, so we're just like, why don't we try playing? And one day, after trying out a bunch of different tournaments, we decided, okay, since there's so many different open tournaments, why don't we just make a team and then keep entering and then, get better at practice, whatever. And we did that. Fast forward a couple months, we make it to a tournament. I still remember what tournament it was too. It was called Gosu Cup NA, number 3 or 4 or something like that. And this was around the time when Bottom was picked up by Dignitas, I believe. And what happened was they were out of NA to play a tournament at DreamHack, I believe. So they were out of the country. So we thought to ourselves, hey, we might actually be able to win this because Dignitas isn't in town. So we sign up for that. We make it to top 4, and we play against Root Gaming in the quarterfinals. And the person casting this game was Lumi. So Lumi was casting this game, and this was around the time when Twitch was starting to pick up and gain momentum. So they streamed this game on Twitch. We played a best of 3. First game we got stomped because we got cheesed by a lichen. And second game, we had like a 1-hour game that was like a really, really close game. It was the time when Magnus was super broken, and when Wisp was super broken, and when Sven was, the number 1 carry because you just stack Ancients and clear it. And that was the kind of game it was because we gave him all those heroes. And we almost managed to win against that. And at the time, Root was, a more well-known team, at least in NA, but we were just a bunch of randoms. And Lumi was streaming, and we caught the tail end of it, and one of our friends was also watching, and Lumi asked the audience jokingly, who are these guys? Like, they're not bad at all. I've never heard of them, but, they gave us some good games. And then my friend jokingly tells Lumi in chat, hey, I know the Eosin guy. He's, like, the captain of this team. It's like, since you have time before the next best of 3, would you like an interview with them? And Lumi's just like, sure, why not? And we get into a Skype call, and that was the first time I ever did an online interview. It was a really, really ghetto one, but still an interview. And
yep.
Through some of the questions that he asked me, he finds out, oh, hey, you live like right next to me. I hear there's a LAN coming up. Would you like to play in it with some of the other guys in the area? I know that Blitz is in the area, and I know that Purge is in the area, and I also think Fluff and stuff is in the area. And I was like, hell, that sounds great.
Wow.
And that's my first encounter with Purge and Blitz, because Lumi was the one who introduced me to them.
And so, from there, obviously they were impressed, by playing with you. How long after that did the idea for the formation of Zephyr kind of, what was the transition from that to Zephyr?
So I think the time that we ended up meeting was somewhere in 2012, and from that point forward, like, we kind of like built up our friendship just through real life interactions, right? We went to LANs together. We found out that all of us actually live fairly close to each other, and then we just hung out in real life. They introduced me to the BTS guys when they were making their transition, like into the very beginning of BTS, and through that I ended up becoming better friends with everyone. And then it wasn't until I want to say it was right at the end of 2013. That was when Blitz went over to compete in NSL. And the idea for Zephyr was a very, very quick idea. Like, they literally just, why don't we try doing this with friends? Let's ask people. Okay, let's do it. And all of this was done in less than a month.
Wow. So pretty quick, and how you guys saw some at least success in that Korean scene pretty quickly thereafter, right?
Yeah, all of our success occurred within the first 3 months, I say. We won NSL, and then we won Season 1 of KDL. But after that, a lot of it dwindles off.
So you haven't been, we see that I'm just looking at your Liquid PD here. It looks like your last major competitive match was in early 2016. Is pursuing a pro Dota career something that is still kind of actively in your mind, or have you kind of decided to segue over into the more streaming content that obviously you've been focused on pretty heavily of late?
If anything, I've already conceded that I'm kind of past my prime. I don't think I'll ever be good enough to compete with the new blood that's arising in Dota. People are just getting better at a more rapid rate. I've been playing forever, but it took me forever to get to the stage simply because I played in a time where there were no resources to get better. Like, your only resource was to refine and refine and refine, by yourself, and no other way.
And now you can check out a Purge video or an Eosin video, or and maybe benefit from the years of knowledge and years of gameplay that you've kind of had to suffer through to learn what you've learned and get there, I guess, just that much faster, right?
Yep, the resources are all there, and because of this, the rate at which people can improve at is 20 times faster now because of that. And yeah.
So you've been streaming pretty regularly on Twitch. When did you transition into your streaming work?
I started streaming after I met Purge and Blitz. I watched them do it. I played with them on their streams, and people would always, say that watching all of us play together is a lot of fun because, you're interacting with friends. And I thought to myself, hey, they're making some pocket change here and there. I mean, I'm just playing games anyways. I might as well try to entertain people, so why don't I try to get into it? Unfortunately, my internet was really lousy, but there were people who just were still interested in watching me regardless. And I guess that's when I started streaming. I never really took it too seriously, though, because I never really thought it would get anywhere. But I think my most successful times for streaming was actually right before Zephyr. And then right after I went into Zephyr, my streaming just plummeted. That's when I realized you got to be really consistent when it comes to building up a following.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you have been more consistent of late. I mean, that is kind of your full-time dedication now at this point, right? Is streaming and maintaining that following?
Oh, not at all, actually. I just kind of do it
really?
Because it's fun for me. I like the community that I interact with. I mean, if you look at my numbers, there's no way I can pursue it full time. It's just not reasonable whatsoever. But I still have a lot of fun just, interacting with my community. I have a very small group, but a very loyal following that throughout the years have been watching me play. Even if it's not Dota, they'll still support me, and I just stream whatever comes to mind that sounds fun. Right now, I'm streaming Persona 5. Haven't even really streamed Dota in quite some time, but it's just something I enjoy doing to pass the time. As far as what I'm actually doing now, I've been transitioning to casting. I've been casting a lot of Southeast Asian games with Lumi, and actually today I actually casted Starladder today with Lyrical as well.
Oh wow, the qualifiers, right?
Yep, the Starladder Invitational or something. Yeah.
Is that so? Is that what you'd like to kind of segue into in the world of esports? Is into casting? I mean, you'd say that's your primary goal moving forward then?
I wouldn't say that it's my primary goal. I have a much more broad idea of where I want to go in terms of staying in esports. I think all of my years spent doing this and hanging around the esports world has kind of given me the experience and the insight to understand what it really takes to actually feed yourself and put food on the table just by doing these random various things in esports. So I'm kind of dabbling in all the areas that I know about. Casting is definitely something I like to do. It's my way of sticking with Dota 2. Even if I'm not playing, I still want to do something that makes me part of Dota 2. And I've also been approached to help people organize tournaments. So we're kind of in a testing phase with that. So we'll see how that goes as well.
Yeah, that's probably a good time to mention that you guys have the We Pick Heroes Amateur Dota 2 tournament coming up. I think by the time this airs, the pre-tournament qualifier on April 23rd might already be done, but the main event will be May 6th through 7th, then 13th through 14th, and then 20th through 21st. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what kind of brought that about?
Yeah, so the tournament is an amateur tournament. One of my investors wanted us to try and make a tournament for them. They don't really have any knowledge in esports. They just like to game casually, and this was just brought up because I played a game with them and they wanted my input because they heard I was an ex-professional player. I gave them some insight and they were just like, you know what? Would you like to try and organize it for us? And I was like, sure, why not? And that's why there's now this tournament. There were a couple of goals in mind behind this tournament. The group behind this, the We Pick Heroes community, they have a team of kids. They just want them to be able to have fun, experience the tournament setting, just get a taste of it, because they have no intentions of becoming professionals. They're finishing high school. They're much more focused on the real life side, but they just want to experience it. And because of that, we're not going to throw them into a random tournament and just be like, there's no limit. Anyone can enter. They're just going to get destroyed, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're just not going to have a good time because they are just a group of kids who are roughly 4.5K, So because of that, we set a cap. We set a limit to it, despite knowing the potential risks, which is people smurfing and whatnot. But we have ways to.
Might be a little easier to avoid the smurfs with the latest changes to solo ranked matchmaking. I don't know if you've heard about that yet. For those who are listening to this, it's probably old news by now. But I guess they're linking. You've got to link a unique phone number to an account before you can participate in solo queue moving forward.
We thought about that, and we were just like, it would help, but very, very minimally, because if someone wanted to smurf still, they can just use a friend's account, right? And then they'll be like, okay, let me sign on, and then, give me the code, whatever. So, we still know that there are ways they're going to try and bypass it, but I'm pretty confident in our ability to spot things. We think that more or less there might be some issues, but we're pretty confident in the fact that this should run fairly smoothly.
Yeah, so it's got a $1,000 prize pool, and it's an NA-based tournament. So sorry for you EU and Australian listeners out there. But so a $1,000 prize pool. First place takes 500, second 300, and third 200. What does the structure look like? What are you going to be doing there?
So the structure is, I want to say, fairly unique. What we had in mind for this was that a lot of this came down to, we had two goals in mind. The first one was, how can we make it so that our WPH team can play as many games as possible? That was step one. And then step two was, how can we structure this tournament so that people are less inclined to smurf just to make a quick buck? And this is why the format looks so, I guess you can say, strange. If I bring it up here, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, so this is why the tournament is going to be spread out into 3 weeks. There's going to be a lot of best of threes, and although the main tournament consists of 8 teams, all 8 of them start off in 2 brackets of 4 teams, and then they play a single elimination style in that. It's like a half a battle cup, and whoever wins that makes it to the upper bracket of the I guess that would be considered the winners final, and then everyone else ends up going through this huge stepping stone, I guess. You start from if you don't make it through the first initial stage, the qualifier 1 and 2, then you play almost something like 20 games to make it back into the grand finals. It's very difficult to explain. I think you would have to look at visual aids just to see what I'm talking about, because I don't think I can put it into words.
So where can folks find information about this? Or so we might be able to get this out. I think we might air this on Saturday, the 22nd. So there might still be a day to sign up. Where would folks find information about the tournament and to sign up and to watch it and participate?
Unfortunately, by the time this airs, I think we're already full on spots. We didn't expect our Reddit. We had a Reddit post detailing everything, and we didn't expect it to have the kind of impact that we thought it would. We posted all the information. It made it to front page, which we didn't expect, and then we managed to get all of the slots filled within 2 days. So,
wow,
that was very surprising.
Yeah, quick sign up.
Yeah, and then
will you guys be streaming the tournament games at any particular location?
So we basically have 4 casters that we're gonna be working with, myself included. The other 3 are Lyrical, and then we have Franz, who was one of my first teammates, and he also recently played on the FDL team. And our last caster is Barney. He used to stream, but I don't know if you heard of Barney. He hasn't streamed in quite some time simply because of wrist injuries, so he can't really play as much as he used to.
Yeah, that sucks.
So basically the way it's going to be working is just we're going to have 2 of our casters just host it from home, because it is an online tournament after all. But we will be making a We Pick Heroes Twitch channel. I anticipate it to be, twitch.tv/ We Pick Heroes, for example. I'm fairly certain that's going to be the case. If not, I'm pretty sure we might have already made it as well. So if you're going to check it out, that's going to be the site or the stream to look for. But we're not going to start streaming the games until the main tournament begins. We're not going to be streaming any of the qualifiers.
Oh, okay. So just until the main event. So folks can start looking for that stream over the weekend of May 6th or 7th. And then each weekend thereafter for 2 more weeks.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, that's awesome. I'm excited to see more amateur Dota 2 tournaments come onto the scene. It is cool. We recently, well, not that recently, but played in the old AD2L League, which I know is still active, Amateur Dota 2 League. Shout out to those guys as well, of course. But it's nice to have those types of outlets where, yeah, you can kind of get the thrill and excitement of a competitive tournament in Dota. And you know, I'll admit it and still suck, because I know I do. So it's nice to have those outlets where you can go and kind of capture an element of that. So really cool to see. So what else is on the horizon for you? Anything coming up that we should know about or keep an eye out for?
Well, apart from this tournament, assuming that this goes well and our investors, like what they see, there's a very high possibility that we'll be seeing more, but not exactly in this amateur setting. It might still exist, it might not exist, but there definitely will be tournaments in the future if this goes well, which for the most part, I think I'm not gonna, jinx it or anything, but everything seems to be proceeding fairly smoothly. But outside of this tournament and just casting in general, I'm just kind of focusing more on myself and in real life and whatnot. So it's nothing really esports related, I suppose.
Well, folks can always check you out over on your stream, which is twitch.tv/Eosin Trash. I noticed when I popped in there that you have trash cans that you award your viewers.
Yep, it's something that stuck with me for forever. I made that Twitch account as a joke, but it was because my old teammates just always used to say I was trash, right, as a joke. So I was like, I was just like, instead of feeling insulted or anything, I played along with it, and I was like, yeah, I am trash. So I called myself Eosin Trash on Twitch, and it's kind of stuck with me since then.
What do the trash cans get you if you're a regular Eosin viewer?
So the original idea was pretty funny, but the only problem is that there's no way to automate it for me. But the idea I had was I don't know if you've spent enough time in my chat, but a lot of people are really very trolly, and they're very I don't know what a good word for it is, but they're very, very rude sounding to strangers. Like anyone who enters the channel feels like everything they say is super insulting. So there's a lot of, joke banter that goes around. And one of the funny ideas I had was, if you watch long enough, you have the ability to time someone else out if they're annoying you. So that's what they mostly were used for. So when I first introduced this idea, it was just really funny because there was just a ton of timing out going on. And as funny as it was, the problem was that it wasn't automated, and it was just difficult to get a mod to do all of this, because I remember at one point it was like there was 150 to 200 redeems of people timing out and untiming out themselves. So I was like, okay, I can't handle this anymore. So now it's like a useless currency. Let's just say it's just useless.
Well, it's still entertaining to see. Well, I'm excited to see the tournament. I wish you guys all the best on that front. I appreciate you coming to join us here on DotP and giving us this little one-on-one interview.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me, by the way. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so if you guys want to find Eosin, like I said, twitch.tv/Eosin Trash. You can also follow him on Twitter at Eosin Dota. That's EOSIN Dota. And be sure to check out the We Pick Heroes tournament. If you go to Reddit and type in We Pick Heroes, it's like one of the first things that pops up. That was how I initially found that post as well. You can get some of the general information there, and be sure to scope out the Twitch whenever that gets popping, and tune in and support these guys. We all love Lyrical here at .p. It's always good to see him cast, and it'll be fun to see him in a more casual tournament setting as well. So definitely looking forward to that event. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us, Eosin. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, this is Cyphus for Eosin saying good luck and Godspeed.